I'm Dr. David Broxterman. I live in Lakeland, Florida, and this is my 1955 Chrysler 300, of which only 1,725 were produced. There are about 275 still remaining on the planet today, of which about 100 of them are drivable, and about 50 of them are in this condition or better. Mine is not an absolute showstopper. The outside surfaces have been repainted. Some of the chrome has been redone, but the majority of the chrome on the vehicle is original. The interior is all original, with the exception of the carpet. The carpet was replaced a few years ago. Under the hood is all original, and in the trunk is all original. So the car met the Antique Automobile Club of America, AACA's HPOF specifications. That's Historical Preservation of Original Features. It has been certified, and it's had a repeat certification every year since 2006. The car was originally issued from the Chrysler Corporation in May of 1955 to Casey Stengel, the manager of the New York Yankees. Now, Casey only had it for about 2 weeks before he gave it to a baseball player named Enos Bradshaw Slaughter. His nickname in baseball was Country, because he was from Person County, North Carolina, Roxborough, North Carolina. He was from the country, born and raised in country. So, excuse me, Enos Country Slaughter was the first actual owner of the car. Mr. Slaughter took the car and titled it in North Carolina. Now, I do have the original title with the car, the actual North Carolina title. Mr. Slaughter drove it for 8 years, owned and drove it for 8 years, while simultaneously promoting the Chrysler 300 in 1955 as part of his obligation with Chrysler in order to obtain legal ownership of the car. He also promoted Schlitz beer, which today would not be a good thing. You're promoting cars and alcohol together. You wouldn't do that. But back in 1955-56, that was commonplace. So the car stayed with Mr. Slaughter until 1963. In 1963, he sold the car for $550 to a man named Leonard Schultes, who was from Halkettsville, New York. Halkettsville, New York is located in the Catskill Mountains. And picture a 3-story barn built into the side of a hill. The barn, let's say you're on the bottom floor of the barn, you're on one level. You go around to the side of the barn, you're on the second level. Go around to the back of the barn, you're on the third level. So if you've got that in your mind, and picture about 36 to 40 cars inside of this barn, and do the math, you've got equal amounts of cars on each level. Well, this car was on the second floor, the middle floor of the barn, and that's where it stayed from 1963 to 2003 when I bought the car. The cars that were located on the bottom floor of the barn rusted from the bottom up because of the moisture coming from the floor up into the frame of the car. The cars that were on the top floor of the barn rusted from the top down, from the weather and the bird droppings and so forth and so on. Well, the cars that were in the middle did fairly well. And of course, the paint deteriorated and so forth, hence the reason for the paint job on this car. When I bought the car, the auctioneer at the auction announced that over half of the cars in the auction had the trunks locked and the keys lost. So no one knew what was in the trunk. So he announced there could be $1 million in gold or a dead body. Either one, you own it. So take your chances. Well, I bought this car, the trunk was locked, nobody knew what was in the trunk. So the car was delivered to me on Halloween night, 2003. We lived in Cincinnati, Ohio at the time. So the very next day, on the 1st of November of 2003, I spent the entire day taking out the back seat, breaking the weld cage in between the passenger compartment and the trunk, crawling back through the trunk with my screwdriver and flashlight, and I popped the trunk from the inside. I had to crawl through mouse nests and pieces of hay and just all kinds of dirt, 40 years worth of dust and dirt. Popped the trunk from the inside, and of course the weather stripping was completely rotted. Inside the trunk was a Schlitz beer box full of personal memorabilia and magazines and used airline tickets, receipts from maintenance that was done on the car, old baseball cards, matchbooks, you name it, a little bit of everything. There was a Pepsi Cola wooden crate filled with car parts. There were no soda bottles in there. There were car parts. There were points, condenser, spark plugs, a wadded up fan belt that was stuck down in there. Of course, it was deteriorated. There was a fire extinguisher, a spare tire with a dry rotted tire on it, a gas can, and a brown leather satchel with the initials EBS on it. Now, inside that satchel were, again, personal documents, one being the original title to the car, another being a 1957 New York driver's license of Enos Slaughter. Well, I'll be honest with you, I did not know who Enos Slaughter was. So I began research online. I went on the internet and began typing in his name, and of course I found all kinds of information about Enos Slaughter. And I began contacting the Slaughter family. I contacted baseball players of the era that were still living. I contacted Mr. George Steinbrenner of the New York Yankees, contacted Mr. Lee Iacocca of prior Chrysler fame, Chrysler and Ford fame, and received letters back from a lot of these individuals confirming that the car was in fact an MVP car that was issued by Chrysler, and that car companies did this periodically to have for free marketing for their automobile. So time goes by, I've had the car for a number of years. We moved to Florida in 2006 from Cincinnati, Ohio to Lakeland, Florida, and I received an email from the president of the Chrysler 300 Club, Rich Barber, who asked if I would be interested in using the car as a prototype for a new model car kit that was being planned by Moebius Models. And I said, of course, absolutely. So he sent my contact information to Mr. Frank Winspur of Moebius Models. Mr. Winspur contacted me. We set up a date for him to come out in 2009. He came out and spent the day with the car. We put it up on a lift. He took, I don't know how many thousands of photographs, measured this, measured that, underneath the car, under the hood, everywhere you can imagine, and took all that information back. And lo and behold, a little over 2 years later, the model car kit of the 1955 Chrysler 300 was produced and launched. Now, the understanding was that I received the first 300 kits produced by the company. Of those 300 kits, each of them are numbered, signed, and each has a certificate of authenticity signed by myself, the owner of the real car, and Mr. Frank Winspur, the president of Moebius Models. Right now, I sell those on eBay. They're $30 each. Every penny of profit goes to the Disabled American Veterans and the Wounded Warrior Project. If you're interested in giving to a good cause and having a future collectible, feel free to go to eBay, type in the search window 1955 Chrysler 300 Limited, and it should take you right to the actual site, and you can make the purchase for $30 plus postage. So there it is. I'm still the proud owner of this beautiful 1955 Chrysler 300. I drive it everywhere we go. It's never trailered. It's about 7 miles to the gallon, and I try to use 100 octane low lead gas as often as I can, but it gets a little expensive sometimes. So we don't drive it as often as it probably needs to be driven. But I am a very lucky man. I have a wife that loves antique cars. I have a daughter that is also very interested in antique cars. She's 14 years old. She loves model cars too. She just built one here at the car show here at the Dream Cars Weekend here in Orlando. And again, I appreciate the honor and privilege of being asked to come to the Dream Cars Weekend and display the car and sell my model cars. Thank you much.
I'm Dr. David Broxterman. my car.
Yeah.